Good morning, Belmont, and welcome back to the Building Belmont podcast. I know you might be listening to this in the afternoon or in the evening, but I'm saying good morning because we are on location at a coffee shop, specifically the Wandering Cup Coffee here in South Fork Village. And today our guest is an impactful member in our community, a great friend of mine, and also a pioneer as a business owner. And I'm so excited to be spending some time with her today. She is a board member, the vice chair on the Belmont Tourism Board, and also the owner and founder of the Wandering Cup Coffee, the location that we're in today. Melanie Mcintyre.
Hi, I'm excited. I love this podcast.
I feel like you were waiting. I feel like you were so excited to get out of the gates, like a horse out of the gates to get out there. So that was awesome. Thank you again for letting us come to your shop and set up and have an interview. And you know, when we started the podcast, or when we had a vision for the podcast, we really wanted to get inside of people's location and spend time there and feel the environment. And so, you know, to actually be in here, it just means a little bit more. We've been recording over at TechWorks with a lot of our interviews, but to be here in your shop, I already feel it. It feels a little bit better. So thank you for having us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So you mentioned that you love the podcast. You've been listening in all five episodes?
Yep, I'm caught up today. So,
awesome. Awesome. Well, Melanie, introduce yourself and how you and your husband came to be in Belmont.
Well, I'm Melanie Mcintyre, like you said, and we've been in Belmont since 2017. We moved here almost 5 years ago, and we were living in North Charlotte before that for about 13 years. So we both grew up in the same town, in a small little town in southwestern Virginia. And at the time that we moved here, I was really kind of craving small town life. I was sort of over the city, and we didn't live right in the city of Charlotte, but on the outskirts. And I really wanted to move back home, and there's just not a lot of opportunity there. So my husband, Mike, was really not on board with that. And so I came to Belmont to go to Nellie's with some coworkers. We were checking it out not too long after they opened, and I had never been, and I was like, what a cute little town. So I took pictures and showed them to Mike, and then probably a year later, I think I finally got him to Belmont, and he fell in love too. So then not long after that, I think we were talking about moving, like just, you know, not wanting to stay where we were in Charlotte. And because we couldn't move home, we just were like, well, Belmont's, you know, a small town. It's what we're used to, and maybe that's a good option. And so that's what we did. And so we've been here ever since. We love it.
And how many years ago was that?
Almost 5 years ago. So this May will be 5 years that we've been here. So yeah.
So before coming to Nellie's, had you ever come out this way? Spent any time in Belmont?
No, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but when we moved to North Carolina, and like I said, we moved here almost 18 years ago to North Carolina from Virginia, we were told that Gaston County was the armpit of North Carolina. So I just didn't ever see a reason to come here. I mean, that's just what we were told, and so we didn't really explore it. We didn't really ever hear much about it. And so I, you know, look back now, and I mean, I know Gaston County's it's very different now probably than it was 18 years ago, but, you know, I'm kind of bummed that I didn't discover it till later, but yeah, so we really had never come here. Mike had come a little bit with work. He used to work for Best Buy, and he did some deliveries and installations with them a few times in Gaston County, but yeah.
It is unfortunate that is how some people remember what Gaston County was, or Gastonia specifically. I do think and agree the brand of Gaston has come a long way, but there are still some mindsets that just don't know. And a lot of people obviously are transplants like you and I and Zach, and you know, people they'll ask about Gaston County, Belmont, Gastonia, Cramerton, whatever it is, and the first thing they hear is something like that. So I mean, how else are we supposed to know? Thankfully, personally for me, I had to be in Gaston County when I moved here for a job. And so we spent a year in Gastonia, and then now we've been in Belmont ever since. And so really took a love and a liking to Gaston County. I'm also a protector of sorts. So when something has a bad rap or I feel it's being bullied, I tend to stick up for it. And so now I've really been passionate about shifting the narrative of Gaston County. And I think, you know, what you've done here is helping that as well. So you and Mike came here, you moved here to Belmont, and obviously you've plugged in very well with the Belmont Tourism Board, being the vice chair, and also being very involved in the community. What drove that level of ownership to say, hey, I want to plug in here, I want to be involved at this level?
Well, like I said, I love the small town feel, and at the time actually that the Belmont Tourism Board had an opening, I was working in tourism, so I was working for the Billy Graham Library in Charlotte, and was their communications manager. And so because it's a tourist attraction, it's a huge, a huge part of my job was promoting it to the tourism industry. So being part of tourism conferences, of the chambers and things like that. So when I saw that there was an opening on the tourism board, I was like, oh, that would be awesome. I can use what what I do at work to help this town that I love so much. And so applied and interviewed for that and, got accepted. And I've been on there ever since. And I've loved that, just getting to connect with the city leaders and just finding ways to help promote Belmont to, beyond even North Carolina, but even beyond that. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you were in communication, so being here on the podcast and doing this is like a fish in water. Does it feel like you're getting back to some of those roots? No.
It is, yeah, but it's never something I'm super comfortable with. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we did say that we were going to have a little bit of an icebreaker to let the audience get to know you, and also just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit.
Okay.
So 2 truths and a lie.
Okay.
So I want you to give me 2 truths and a lie, and I did prepare her ahead of time a little bit. 2 truths and a lie, and I have to guess it. Some things that will allow us to get to know Melanie a little bit more.
I was born in Louisiana. I have visited all 50 states, and I have never ridden a roller coaster.
So the Wandering Cup, I know a little bit about that background. I know that you and Mike like to travel. So 50 states is feasible. Born in Louisiana, I'm trying to recall through our many conversations. I'm going through the files now. Like, did she ever mention Louisiana? Because I feel like that would come up. And then never ridden a roller coaster. I know that you're adventurous, but I've never on your Instagram seen you at a theme park. So I'm going to say the lie is, this is tough. I'm going to say the lie is born in Louisiana.
No, I was born in Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that never come? Well, hold on, wait a minute. Let me help you out so you don't have to say it. If I was born in Louisiana, I wouldn't mention it either.
Oh, I love that I was born in Louisiana. I love that. It's Cajun country. Yeah, it was the first 4 years of my life. So my dad was transferred there for work from Virginia, and but he worked out on the oil stuff, and I don't really know all the details, but I have some small memories of those years, and they're all really good.
Okay.
Yeah, we loved our time in Louisiana.
So which one is the lie then?
I've never ridden a roller coaster.
Never?
I mean, no. I'm sorry. The lie is I've never been to all 50 states.
See, now I don't know.
I haven't ridden a roller coaster either. I got really
so you gave me 2 lies and
no,
1 truth? Okay.
I've never ridden a roller coaster. That's true.
Okay, so you've never ridden a roller coaster.
But I've
not visited all 50 states.
Right. So I've never ridden a roller coaster is true.
Okay.
Yeah, but
See,
I have not visited all 50 states.
I wanted to say all 50 states,
Yeah.
but I had never heard you say Louisiana, or have you? Did I forget about it? Because I feel like I have a great memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, coming from Louisiana, actually, I visited there at the end of last year for the very first time I ever had a client down there.
That's right. I remember.
Went down and spent some time with them, and honestly, I loved it. I mean, if you like the outdoors, then you'd love it. And I'm from New Mexico, so that's all they really have too.
Yeah.
So okay, well, thank you for sharing it and letting us get to know you. I did promise you that I would do a 2 truths and a lie as well. So now you get to guess it. So I was a cheerleader in 8th grade.
Okay.
I used to have an afro.
Okay.
And I've been shot in the leg.
I think the lie is you've been shot in the leg.
Okay. Zach, you can join us. Which one do you think is a lie? The cheerleader? You think that's a lie? Okay. I have to confess, all 3 are true. All 3.
You tricked us. That's not me.
I used to have an afro. We will dig up an old photo. I think I had them all stricken from the record.
Yeah.
And after football season, my 8th grade year, there was a girl I had a huge crush on, and she was a cheerleader, and they needed some guys, and what else is an 8th grade boy thinking about? And so I tried my hand at that, and I've always been about this size, so it wasn't a smashing success. I went back to football, and then I did have a gunshot wound to my right leg.
Wow.
And so more on that later.
Okay.
So moving right along, then that was fun. See, that wasn't too bad, right? Tell me why a coffee shop? Did you always envision a coffee shop? I mean, obviously, it sounds like you've, even in your role with Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, it sounds like you always had an entrepreneurial spirit. But did you always think coffee, or was it just something? Tell me about that.
So I can't remember. Mike started drinking coffee maybe 7 years ago or something. He quit dipping tobacco, and that addiction turned to coffee. And so we just started, once we started traveling a lot, I always like to say we started learning how to travel. And some people don't understand that, but you really do have to learn how to travel. But once we started doing that, then we decided to take what we learned and explore our city as well, because we had really never explored Charlotte. And so one of our favorite things to do or what we started doing was visiting coffee shops, because he had developed this love of coffee. And I liked coffee before that. I didn't drink it all the time, but I drank it occasionally. And I remember sitting in Smelly Cat Coffee in Noda, and it was our first visit there. And I just remember sitting there looking around, and I just loved the feeling. I loved the feeling of community. Like you'd see people, these two over here just catching up, these two friends. This person over here studying, this person over here meeting with someone and kind of collaborating on some kind of work thing. And I just thought, this is so cool to see all, these things happening all at the same time in the same space. And also my husband and I, were able to connect with each other. It was like a date, that we just loved that. And I remember looking at him and saying, I want one of these. Like, I want this. And so this passion started after that. So I started just like learning as much as I could about coffee without actually working in a cafe. And it just started from that. And for about the next 6 years, I just dreamed. I, talked to everybody I met about what I wanted and what I wanted to create. And that's sort of, I guess, how it started. And then as we continued our travels, that was sort of one of the things that we love to do, is to find the local coffee shops. And so got to experience the feel. There's so many different vibes that coffee shops all over. And so that just became like one of our favorite things to do together in Charlotte, but also outside of Charlotte.
So when you said, I want this, what did Mike say?
I'm sure he just rolled his eyes. We're so opposite. I'm such a dreamer, and he's such a realist. So he was probably just like, okay. He didn't really say
That's nice, honey.
Yeah, that's nice, honey. Yeah.
Okay, well, fast forward and seeing how involved Mike is with you here, congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, to think of that, so that was 6 years ago?
That was probably 6 or 7 when that first started, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Smelly Cat Coffee, I've never been there, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's cool. It's very small, and I don't know if their space is open right now, like as far as the dining space, but it's just a cool vibe. And I mean, Noda's a cool little neighborhood anyway. So
yeah, I'll have to go visit.
Yeah.
Before we get into the story of Wandering Cup, what are your favorite things about a coffee shop as you're wandering and as you're checking out different coffee shops? What are the things that really set it apart for you?
I like for it to feel a little cozy, and I always like to see. I like to know where they get their coffee from, whether they roast or if they get it from a roaster. And so some coffee shops you can't tell, and they don't make that known, and so automatically I'm like, they're not so serious. I feel like maybe they're not as serious about the coffee if they don't let it be known if they roast. Like if I have to ask who roasts their coffee and it's not like known in there, then I'm kind of like disappointed. But yeah.
So it's like the details that you look into to see how they really care about their coffee or their people or what have you.
Yeah.
That's a great
question. And also just the service. I mean, I want to go in and experience like really excellent customer service. That always makes it like a barista that's, especially for traveling, somebody that's going to talk to us about the area, about maybe even like recommendations of like, oh, you should also go here or whatever. Just I like that, just interacting and getting to know because why we like to go to local coffee when we're traveling is to experience what it's like to live there. And so I want to get that from the visit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. I like local coffee shops, particularly yours, make me a better coffee drinker. I'm a black coffee drinker, so it doesn't get very fancy. For me, it's the environment. So you could be running 2 Keurigs back there, and if the environment's good, I'm good. Oh yeah, I definitely would. But if the environment's great, I'm okay with it, right? And so you make me a better coffee drinker to ask those kinds of questions and to notice those things, because there's only so many ways you can get a coffee black. You can get real fancy and put a shot of espresso or 2 in it. But okay, so now Wandering Cup.
Yeah.
How did Wandering Cup come to be? I want to hear about the night at the art studio from there, and then also the name. How did this come to be reality?
Okay. So Mike, we're right next to, if people aren't aware, we're right next to District 8, which is like a bottle shop / brewery. He's a brewery now, but at the time he was just a bottle shop. And we hadn't lived here very long, I don't think. And Mike had gone over there to get beer. And as he walked by, he saw in the window here in the art studio, they had the old ceramic Christmas trees that you could come in and paint. And he is such a I call him a Christmas elf. He loves Christmas. And he especially loves nostalgic Christmas. So he came home and he was like, there's an art studio and you can paint your own ceramic Christmas trees. We need to go. So we had a date night here. And the night we were here, Mary and Dennis, who are the owners of A Little Bit of Art, which is where we are, we were the only ones here, and they were here. So we were here, and it takes us several hours to do that. So we were here painting and talking with them for 2 or 3 hours. And they were talking about their business and how they, wish they had more traffic. And so as a marketing background, which is what I was, what's my degree and also what I was doing at the time, I started asking them questions. Have you done this? Have you tried that? And just offered to help them. I did a little freelance marketing on the side anyway at the time. And so a couple months later, they contacted me and said, hey, we'd like to hire you to help with our marketing. So I started doing that part-time for them. And business really started picking up for them. They were doing really well. And then COVID happened. So this was at the end of, this was like fall to the end of 2019 when I met them I think it was like August all the way to the end. And then COVID happened and they had to close. And so when they opened back up, business was still just not picking back up. So they approached me and they said they knew I'd wanted to open a coffee shop. And they said, what if we put a coffee shop in the front of this space? Because they were just wanting to try to find ways to get people through the door and see the studio. And they said, would you partner with us? And you can put the coffee shop in the front. They don't drink coffee. They don't know anything about it. So they were like, you can operate it, run it, and we'll just partner together and, help get it started. And Mike had never been on board with the idea of a coffee shop because he's just a very realist, not a risk taker, which is a good balance for me. But he, even with this, he just said, you can't pass this opportunity up. This is the least risky way that you can start a business and just try this out. And my prayer all along had been that we would be unified in a decision, even all these years before thinking about a coffee shop. And so it was scary, but so I quit my job, my full-time job, and we started the Wandering Cup, and that's kind of where we are.
Wow. And what was the month and year that you started?
October. So we started the conversation in June, and I quit my job in September, and at the end of October is when we opened.
October 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
So probably one of the worst times to start a coffee
shop.
Right?
Right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic.
How was that with obviously, being right in the middle of the pandemic, not knowing when things were really going to open up?
Because of the pandemic, though. Okay. I mean, so I always say that this was their pandemic pivot. It was a way for Dennis and Mary to keep their business alive during the pandemic. And it has been amazing for their business. It's brought, I think 90% of their business now comes from people who came into the coffee shop and saw the studio and they come back to paint. So
it's amazing.
So it's been because of it. And it really, I don't feel like it, coffee, my roaster, who's Knowledge Perk out of Rock Hill, told me, I talked to the owner during all of this and said, do you think I'm crazy trying to open this in the middle? And he said, no, he said, what we learned at Knowledge Perk is that coffee is considered essential. He said their business did not slow down. The number of people coming in maybe slowed down during the pandemic, but they would come in and buy more and just not come in as often. Does that made sense? So they actually did really well during the pandemic. And so when he said that, he's like, coffee's essential. That's just what people have decided.
Yeah, I would say coffee is essential business as well. It is absolutely necessary. And then it does make sense that people would go and buy it from the local shop to keep their coffee at home or what have you, to continue to support local businesses. So, thank God for Dennis and Mary. What a great conversation. And what I loved about that story, having heard it before, is just the heart towards service all the way around. You were getting to know them, you were having a conversation, and you saw they had a need, and you just started having a conversation and trying to help them meet that need. And they saw you had a need or a desire, or I would say even a calling. Yeah. And so then they served that, and then now combined A Little Bit of Art and the Wandering Cup Coffee here in South Fork Village is, that is the heart here is of service. So I love the way it started, I love the way it's maintained, and I also love the heart and the direction it's going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with coming into coffee in October of 2020, some would say it was the worst time, and you're saying it was the best time. And I love that perspective. Starting a business and being willing to venture out in that way. What were some of the things that you're most proud of that you've learned along the way, and what were also some of the tensions in starting your coffee shop? Oh, wow. I don't know. As far as most proud of, I think just being able to create a brand, and for me, I think I just have loved the way that Mike has come on board and come alongside, and
even, gets out of his comfort zone and jumps behind the counter and serves customers. He's such an introvert, so it's definitely a little more tiring for him to do that, to be on. But just being able to just to create this space. I mean, it's obviously not what I envisioned in when I first started dreaming of owning a coffee shop, but being able to pivot my thinking and still try to do what I can do with the space that I'm given. Mm-hmm. As far as tensions go, I think I mean, just when you leave a salaried job that has benefits and it has like a steady income, and you go to not, there's a lot of tension there. There's a lot of fear. Okay. But it's been so cool to see how the Lord's provided, just in the time since I quit my job. So, yeah.
So obviously this location in Wandering Cup Coffee is a blessing, again, birthed out of service to Dennis and Mary to you. But this location is a little bit off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. You're technically on the border of Cramerton and Belmont. Yep. And you had some names.
Cremont is where we are.
Okay. Yeah. I liked Bellerton. What happened to that?
Well, we did a vote. Okay. And our followers on Instagram picked Cremont.
Cremont.
So, yeah, I think it flows off the tongue a little bit
better than Bellerton?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just so like Belmont loyal at this point that it's like anything that starts with Bell. Yeah. But so you're right on the border, Belmont and Cramerton. Yeah. South Fork Village coming down Wilkinson. It's in the South Fork Village with District 8 Brewing Company. And
Suns Up Scuba, isn't it?
Suns Up Scuba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then is there a lot of scuba diving around here? What's going on with that?
Well, they used to rent kayaks. I think they still might.
Okay.
Because there used to be an entrance like right here. I mean, you could walk a kayak down here. But then there was like a storm and it kind of destroyed that whole entrance and nobody's ever built it back. But yeah, I mean, they do trips all over the world. Actually, they go like to the Caribbean and they do Florida and all over. So they train in during the winter months. I think they go to the Y, and then sometimes when it's warmer, they'll do either like Norman or they'll go to the quarry and do training. But yeah, I see a lot of guys with tanks coming out.
So you can, you get your coffee in the morning. Yeah. You can do a little, trip to the art studio.
Yep.
Have a beer and then go out on the boat. Mm-hmm. Or maybe be more responsible. Go out on the boat, come back for a beer.
Yeah. And so he brews next door too. So he has District 8 is the bottle shop portion, and then South Fork Brewing Project is it's like a pilot brew, like a small batch brewery.
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to highlight the area, and that really leads into my next question, because being so far off the beaten path, what are some creative things that you've done or creative tools that you've found to pull people out of their routine, not to say necessarily away from Starbucks, but Starbucks is the behemoth in coffee, and it's so easy and efficient to order, just hop in the line. Mm-hmm. What are some creative things you've done to pull people off of the beaten path? Because I'll tell you, this is not en route to my daily routine, but I come out of the way because I enjoy the coffee shop and I do enjoy you and what you built here. Mm-hmm. But what are some practical ways that you've deployed your marketing background or even tools to get people here to experience Wandering Cup?
Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely social media. That's huge for us, and just connecting with like Eileen from Belmont and Happenings, connecting with her. Like, she's really helped to promote and push people to us. We did last year. We did three different markets out front here and in South Fork. So we would have like up 17 or so vendors come and set up and sell their crafts or handmade things or food or different things like that. And that draws people. People love markets. And so we've done 3 of those. Those have been super successful. Even other random pop-ups like Honey Bear Bake Shop, who is our cookie vendor. She doesn't have a location, and so she'll do pop-ups all around. So she comes and she brings a big following from Charlotte. People love her there. And even things as simple as just having mobile ordering. So there's an app called Odeco that does just mobile ordering for coffee shops. And some people have found us just by looking, because you can go on the app and just try to find a coffee shop near you. And so people have found us that way. And it also just helps add convenience. Starbucks has their app. And so obviously small businesses like ours don't have the money to have our own app. But Odeco has kind of come in and really to help those small coffee shops offer this extra service to their customers, so you can order ahead. And even we recently started doing DoorDash for delivery. We're just kind of testing that out a little bit. But like some people are even finding us through DoorDash, or they can't get away to get to their coffee, and so they can have it delivered to them even.
So Odeco, that's exclusively local coffee shops?
It is, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Were you aware of that before starting Wandering Cup and all of your wandering?
I was. I actually was. It was originally called Clusive, and I think it was actually started in Charlotte. It's not based in Charlotte anymore, but I think it got bought. But I had that to order for myself, like as a customer on the customer side. So I was aware of that.
To find local coffee shops
and to order ahead,
okay.
yeah.
And so DoorDash, Odeco, some other ways that people can engage with you and get some of the same efficiency of a Starbucks. And you had an interesting take that I wanted you to share that you shared before we started recording about your respect for Starbucks.
Yeah.
Now, yes, in some ways they're competition, but there's also an admiration for them. So tell me about that.
I don't hate on Starbucks at all. I mean, I see Starbucks as if Starbucks did not exist, this shop would not exist. They brought the specialty coffee. They introduced it to America. I mean, if you've read Howard Schultz's autobiography, it's a really great book. It's a great story just to learn about how Starbucks came to be, and I appreciate them for creating fans of specialty coffee in America. And so, I mean, I'll go to Starbucks if I'm traveling and I can't find a local coffee shop. Yeah. And so I appreciate them. I don't hate on them. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think that's an interesting take. And, it really does also express who you are as a person that is really about your mission. And there's just all love and support in that. So I do like that take because, being a hometowner, yes, I still go to Starbucks, but I also still have a certain affinity to support the Wandering Cup coffee, everyday mugshots, the local shops to help to keep them going. So tell me, as we close, about the future of Wandering Cup coffee and what you hope to continue to build moving forward.
Well, I mean, I think I've mentioned this space isn't what I initially envisioned. It is very small. There's not a lot of seating. There's not really a kitchen area. Not that I want to offer a full menu or anything. One thing that we haven't talked about is I love that my small business helps to support other small businesses. So we have local bakers from Charlotte that we have their products here, and having locally roasted coffee. And so I always am looking for ways to incorporate other small businesses into ours. So I don't want to replace all that, but it would be nice to have a little more space for customers, but also a little more space for a kitchen. I would love to offer coffee in, a mug instead of a paper cup. So all of those things mean that a new space is needed, a new location. And so whether that's a second location or just moving to a different location, we're exploring a lot of options right now, just trying to find another space. I mean, preferably in Belmont, that would be our first choice, but we have to I definitely don't want to leave Gaston County. So that's kind of where we are right now. And we just also rolled out a new mobile version of the Wandering Cup, which is like a little coffee cart. And so we've used that for a couple times and have a couple of things coming up in the next few months, hopefully as well. But it'll be available for events, or we'll hope to maybe pop up at some festivals or concerts or little event happenings around the community. So hopefully you'll see it wandering around.
Awesome. The Wandering Cup coffee. We didn't get to this, but we can't get through your introduction story without understanding what and why the name, the Wandering Cup.
So because, Mike and I love to travel, and Dennis and Mary have traveled quite a bit in their life too. Dennis used to work for JARS and was kind of a missionary for a long time. So they've traveled all over. But when we travel, like I said, we want to know what it's like to live there. And so we feel like the best place to do that is at a local coffee shop and local brewery. We love coffee and we love beer. And so we felt like we were just kind of wandering around with our cups, filling them with coffee and beer. And so it just kind of stuck.
I like it.
Yeah.
I do like it. And now with the coffee cart, are we calling that the Wanderer or anything like that?
I had a few customers suggest Wanda, the Wandering Cart. I want to come up with a name, but I don't know if Wanda is going to be it or not. I kind of like Wanda, but we'll see.
The Wandering Cart.
Yeah, some people have said that too, the Wandering Cart. Yeah.
I like that. It's so on brand. I mean, I feel like, a lot of your stories continuing to develop and how you're growing and things like that. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so finally, now this episode is going to be released in mid-April. And so you have your spring menu available. We want people to come and enjoy you. Tell us about your rotating, you have a set menu and then a rotating menu.
Yep. Yep.
And what people can find on your spring menu so they can come and find you.
So our spring menu, yeah, it's we usually do every season, and then throughout the year we'll do some special, like we did a Harry Potter menu last year. We did a few like week-long menus, but the seasonal ones were usually 3 or 4 months. And the spring menu, we have mostly iced drinks for this one, but we have some fun things like a peanut butter cold brew, which is amazing. And I think you had a keto version of that the other day.
Yes.
We have one that's a little different. It's a limoncello sparkling water with a little bit of rose, and then you put the espresso on top of that. So it's very different. A lot of people are a little weirded out by like sparkling water or anything like that with espresso, but it's surprisingly refreshing. That's probably that'll be probably the weirdest one, but very, very good. Even taro, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, taro. It's sort of like a root vegetable, but we've made a frap out of it, so there's no coffee in that one, but it is also a very different, unique flavor as well. So there's some fun, colorful drinks.
Yes.
So they can see our full menu on our Instagram, Facebook, or our website.
So a sparkling water and an espresso, what's the origin of that?
I just see that a lot.
Okay.
Like and so actually last year was probably the first time we tried that, and it's really good. I was really surprised the first time. I think I found somebody's recipe last year that I tried, and I was shocked at how good it was, and so then I've been experimenting with it ever since.
And I assume it's iced. It's a cold drink?
It's iced.
Okay,
I
assume.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I don't think sparkling water would be very good hot.
No.
I mean, I've never tried it, but
I didn't think so. Well, I'll try that, and
Okay.
I'll report how good it is, and you guys can trust I'm a black coffee drinker, so maybe you can't trust me. Come and try it for yourself.
Yeah.
Anything else to share before we end today?
No, just, follow us along on Facebook, Instagram, check out our website, but just come in and we love to, meet the people in our community and get to know them. And I love that, people walk in the shop and I know them by name, and we have sometimes even today I had a great, like really deep conversation with a customer sharing, something he experienced over the weekend. And I love getting to connect with our community like that. So.
Well, wander on over to the Wandering Cup. I've been dying to say that. I'd be so cheesy sometimes. And check out a little bit of art, the art studio. Enjoy that. Enjoy a cup of coffee. And again, you can go scuba diving or rent a kayak or get a beer next door.
Yep.
But thank you wait a minute. You've been following along with us. You want to do the close? You want to go for it?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Building Belmont. New episodes every Monday morning. Subscribe, like, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform and video on YouTube. If you are listening, you can join us on YouTube and watch along there. And we'll see you next week for our next episode. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Building Belmont podcast. I'm your host, Keanu Trujillo, reminding you to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And of course, share with a friend, share with a neighbor. We'll see you again next week as we capture more stories, create more connection, and share more information here on the Building Belmont podcast.